Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today we are diving into a story that stretches from the very beginning of creation all the way to the end of time. And it's all about one big idea, a lost authority and the mission to get it back. Okay, let's get into it. So where does this all kick off? Well, our source material says it all began with this huge cosmic mission given to humanity. A mandate, really, to rule over the earth. But as we're going to see, something went terribly wrong, leading to a loss of power that has consequences rippling through all of creation. To really get a handle on what was lost, we've got to go back. I mean, all the way back to the beginning, to understand what was given in the first place. And the source paints a picture of this role not as a king, but as something very different, the first steward. And really, this whole idea is anchored in this one verse from Genesis. Now, this wasn't just a friendly tip or a suggestion. This was a direct, powerful command. You could almost call it the original job description for planet Earth. But when you hear that word rule, don't think of a tyrant or an owner. Think stewardship. It's a temporary, delegated authority. It's kind of like being the CEO of a massive, beautiful company. You have immense power, yes, but you don't actually own it. You're managing it on behalf of the real owner. In this case, God, and you're supposed to do it with a heart of love. And what's so cool here is how this big idea breaks down into actual tasks. You have the practical stuff, rule over the animals, cultivate the garden, even name them, which in that ancient context was a huge sign of understanding and authority. But the last 2 points, that was the real job, to project God's love and to exercise authority with God's mind. That was the core of the whole thing. So you have this perfect setup, but yeah, it didn't last. According to the source, a single act of disobedience wasn't just a simple slip-up, it was catastrophic. It literally triggered a complete transfer of power. And here's the thing. The problem wasn't some outside attack. It was internal. Adam's hurt changed, turning away from God's will. And that one internal shift had an immediate, devastating external consequence. The authority he held was basically forfeited. Now, this is the absolute crucial point. The narrative claims that Adam's failure meant his God-given authority was legally handed over. It wasn't just taken, it was given away. And we see this pop up later in Luke's gospel, where Satan offers this exact dominion to Jesus. And he boasts, "It has been given to me." He's claiming legal ownership. And this slide just perfectly sums up the before and after. The entire operating system of the world changed. You go from a world ruled by divine loving care to, well, what the source calls the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, the strong crush the weak, a total brutal reversal. And you know, this wasn't just a human problem. The fallout hit everything. The source uses this passage to show that all of creation was dragged down into this suffering. It's described as groaning, like it's in pain, trapped, and just waiting for something to change. Okay. So the problem is massive, right? It's cosmic. So the solution had to be just as profound. And this is where the story pivots and introduces a figure who's meant to reverse this whole catastrophe and reclaim what was lost. That solution comes in the form of a figure called the last Adam, a title for Jesus Christ. The whole idea is that he came specifically to succeed where the first Adam failed, to come back and legally and spiritually reclaim that lost inheritance for humanity. And his work isn't random. It's framed as this deliberate, almost legal 3-step process. First, the creator literally steps into his own creation, becoming human. Second, he lives a perfect life, fulfilling that original mandate. And third, his death on the cross acts as the final legal transaction that reclaims the lost dominion for good. The inheritance is secured. So, the cosmic legal victory is won. The inheritance is reclaimed. But the story isn't over, not by a long shot, because now that victory had to be transferred to a humanity that was still defeated and living under that law of the jungle. And at first, you can imagine his followers felt pretty lost. Their leader was gone, and they were left in a world still dominated by the very forces their leader had just defeated. They had the promise of victory, but they didn't yet have the power. They were powerless until the Holy Spirit arrived. And this was the absolute game changer. This was the moment the power of that victory was finally transferred to them so they could continue the mission on earth. And this verse from the book of Acts is key. This power wasn't for their own glory or comfort. It was functional. It was given for a very specific purpose, to become witnesses, agents of this restoration all the way to the ends of the earth. And this slide shows the incredible internal change this power made possible. According to the source, humanity could now be transformed, from being stuck reflecting a fallen nature to being restored to the original image of God, reborn, finally empowered to act as his stewards again. So, with humanity being restored, piece by piece, the source points toward the grand finale, the end game for this entire cosmic story. And this is a really fascinating detail. The timeline for the end isn't random. The source claims it's actually tied to a predetermined number of people. They're called martyr witnesses, and they need to be fully restored to God's image, proving that his way of love truly works. So once that number is met, it triggers a clear sequence of events, like cosmic dominoes falling. Phase 1, the number is fulfilled. Phase 2, a final judgment begins. And that all leads to Phase 3, the ultimate resolution, a cosmic Sabbath rest for all of creation. And what does that rest look like? It's a return to perfect harmony. That law of the jungle we talked about? Gone. Completely undone. Predators and prey live together in peace. A state of being where there's no harm, no destruction, only rest. And that brings our explainer to a close. The source material lays out this massive, cosmic narrative of a dominion lost and a breathtaking plan to restore it. And it leaves us with one final question to think about. If this grand story is really about restoring stewardship over creation, what's our part in that story today?